It's ready.
I would like to tell you about some great women that I've knew from my childhood. Yes, I remember my mother when I was 5 years old. She told me a story about when the first train come across America, and she wasn't there when it came across, but my father's mother was. So I got part of it from her, and as this train come through Arkansas, the people had never saw a light like on that headlight on that train. They didn't have no lights on the buggies. They didn't have no lights on the wagons. But this headlight of this, they'd usually cut the road as straight as they could and then turn if they had to, and then straight again. Well, that headlight would throw a beam plumb on the farthest yonder, and they actually thought that it shone all the way. And so the Baptist people, they decided that they need to write a song about that. So they wrote a song, and so my mother taught it to me when I was 5 years old. Jesus is my headlight, shining all the way, making dreary midnight just as bright as day. Storms may rage around me long, and dark may be the night. Jesus is my headlight, and my way is bright. And then after she taught me that, she said, I got one more song I want to teach you now. And like I tell you, this was just before I was 6 years old. And so she taught me, come and sit by the side of your mother, my boy. You have only a moment, I know, but you'll stay till I give you my parting advice, for it's all that I have to bestow. Hold fast to the right, hold fast to the right, wherever your footsteps may roam. Oh, forsake not the way of salvation, my boy, for the way of the cross leads us home. Well, all right. I learned them too when I was 5 years old. Never forgot them. I've sung them ever since. Sung them when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right on. Right on until I finally got saved when I was 13. Yes. Well, then the day she taught me that, we was going to visit a neighbor, and we had to go from our house down this way and hit the county road, go up over a hill, and at the top of that hill I had a great experience with the Lord. And we went off of this hill down here to the county line and went about a half a mile south. And this neighbor we was going to see lived in a house that had been built just like the one that was there before them. And I was born in that house. So we got there, we went in, and of course they didn't have nothing but cane bottom chairs for us to sit in. Only the woman had a rocking chair. She sat in a rocking chair, and my mother sat beside her, and I sat here, so I was facing the front of them. And she started telling my mother, said, I saw your son in town the other day, and says he has such an impediment of speech. Because he made the awfulest faces I have seen. Said, I couldn't sleep that night. The faces he made terrorized me. She said, I didn't sleep a wink all night. No. And she said, and he couldn't talk worth anything hardly. He made a little sizzling sound all the time, and every once in a while get a word out that was misshapen. So she said, and I'm sure that he don't understand what I'm saying. My mother stood up for me and she said, yes, he understands everything he said. No, they couldn't nobody make a face like he does trying to talk and understand somebody talking. He said, ain't no way. So she was convinced, and see, we knew them for a long time, and she had a girl just older than me and had a boy just younger than me. They'd come to visit us and we'd play together. Done that lots of times, yes. But anyway, Daddy had a man working for him on a farm he was sharecropping, and this man wanted to sell my dad his old Ford T-Model truck. He wanted $35 for it. So Daddy bought it in the field where we was picking cotton. And so my mama was there, and she didn't never want to pick cotton beside of this man that was working for Daddy. She said, if you ain't going to pick cotton in the middle between us, I ain't going to the field. Mm-hmm. Now that's my mother talking. And when he bought the truck, well, the fellow told him, I plan to leave the country tomorrow. And so Mama didn't say a thing. So after he left, she asked Daddy, is he going by himself? And Daddy says, no. And that's all he said. Well, okay. So then I left her house that day feeling that I had an inferiority complex. Couldn't think as good as other folks. Couldn't talk as good as other folks. Couldn't do nothing as good as other folks. I was a mess, that's all. And going down there, the Lord had appeared to me up here on the hill and turned the sunlight up so bright till it filled me with sunshine in here. And I run off of the hill and back up to Mama, and off of the hill and back up to Mama, and off of the hill and back up to Mama. About the fifth time she said, Havis, what's wrong with you? I said, it's the sunshine, Mama. I said, does it seem like to you it's just like it always was? Yeah, she said. Well, I said, it shines so bright in here till it's filled me up with sunshine. I can't be still. Okay, so I kind of got it under control, and we walked down here, and we walked down that road, but I walked way ahead of Mama. I was feeling high. Well, all right, when she got through explaining about this inferiority complex, Mama stood up. She saw she couldn't stop her from talking, so she stood up and said, it's the time for us to go home. So we started home, and my mother, bless her heart, she walked down a straight road until some trees come between her view of the house. And she knew the woman couldn't see her. So she just come over to the side of the road and kind of squatted down on her knees. She could have put her hands on the ground, but she didn't. And she said, come here, Havis. And I was dragging way behind. Oh, I was in terrible shape. So she she said, come here to me, Havis. And so I could trust her. So I come right up to her. She put her arm around me. She said, don't you believe a thing that woman says. Said, she don't know what she's talking about. He said, you'll find out before long. She don't know what she's talking about. Next day I went to school, first day of school. Or whenever it come, I went to first day, and here was this girl of hers and this boy of hers. And they was both just crying. And so the boy said, what's the matter with these children? Oh, their mother had left the country with this fellow. Yeah. Well, I thought, if she won't have no better sense than that, I don't need to pay her anything. But anyway, I couldn't get loose from that. Like I say, I was just barely 6 years old, and so I carried that till I was in the 5th grade. I started school that day in the 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. I was in the 5th grade. And a teacher was teaching me named Quattlebaum. Never forget her name. I had met her my first year of school. Her and her husband come to a country school that had the school divided. She taught the lower classes, he taught the upper classes. And so I met her then. And there she made her first impression on me. She said, Havis, would you stay at recess? I want to talk to you. Well, sure, be glad to. So, and when they all went out, well, she called me up to her desk and she said, Havis, do you think your mother would be interested in doing my laundry? And I said, well, see, my dad had a drinking problem. He never did mistreat us at all, but he never come home with any money. He spent it before he got home. And I knew she'd welcome some money, so I said, probably she would. Well, all right, she says. Said, the reason I picked her out, you're the cleanest boy in my class. You wear the cleanest clothes, you have the cleanest face, cleanest hands. Yes. So I thought, she's the one I want to do my laundry. She said, now tomorrow I'll take my laundry over there and you can ride with me. And said, I'll hire your mother. So that was the first time I met her, and I didn't see her only just passing till this day over here. And so she said, Havis, said, I want to talk to you. And she had asked the others to go out, and when they went out, to lock the door. And so they did. She called me up to her desk, and I walked up there, and she said, Havis, every question I ever ask you, if you answer it, you make an A. But there are some times, Havis, that you say, I don't know the answer. And she said, I believe I figured you out. I won't tell you what I figured you out to be. And you tell me if I'm right or wrong. I said, you'd rather take a D on your report card than being the stutter before the whole class. Because some of them made fun of me. I said, am I right? And I said, you're right. He said, hey.
It's still on. Like still on.
She said, Havis, said that I'll make a deal with you. Well, I said, let's hear it. She said, if you'll answer the questions that nobody else can answer, I'll give you straight A's all year. I guess I looked startled. And that's the first break I ever had in life. Right? And she said, do you want to take my deal? Oh, yes, said I'd be foolish if I didn't. So, it wasn't long. I sat on the fourth seat from her left, the wall on her left. The fifth seat and the sixth seat and the seventh was held by three girls that made straight A's all the time. And I wondered why she set me there by me. It wasn't no time after then till she moved me plumb to her right in the last row against the wall and moved me next to the back seat only. There was one empty seat before you get back there. And the Theodore Dacus, he sat in the last seat. So she put me in that seat. I thought, what in the world have I done? I don't remember doing anything that it caused me to be put way back here. You know, well, okay. Just a few days after that, she come out with a question. Who discovered the Pacific Ocean? I'll never forget it. And she asked two boys over here against the wall. They couldn't answer it. And she says, I see that there's probably nobody going to answer my question. So says, I'm going to go back to that wall. I'm going down each line and give everybody a chance to answer it. Mm-hmm. She come right over to me and she, no, I'm back yonder. I forgot I'd moved. And she come to these three girls and she asked them. They couldn't answer it. And Miss Quattlebaum winked at. And when she did, I answered her wink. She giggled and laughed and giggled and laughed. She knew what I was telling her. So, all right, she goes on down all the road. She gets to me and she said, I won't tell y'all ahead of time. Havis has the answer. But said, y'all all know it'll take him a long time to get it out. They knew that, so they laughed. So she said, I'm going to ask that old Eccles back there. And if he can answer it, all right. And if he can't, I'll come back to Havis and let him answer it. She asked him, he didn't know, so she come back to me. She said, Havis, would you stand up and tell the whole class who discovered the Pacific Ocean? I stood up. For the first time in them 5 years, I was able to look other folks in the face. I had an inferiority complex. I didn't look nobody in the eyes, afraid they could tell that I was kind of crazy. Okay. So I stood up and I looked all around before I said a thing. And so I looked around and everybody's looking at me. I had their attention. You know, I said it was a bow. She said, just a minute, Havis. Could anybody tell me what Havis was trying to say? They all just answered in one accord, Balboa! She said, let's stand and give him a standing ovation. everybody stood and clapped their hands. And I felt like somebody, felt like they could all talk better than me. I knew something they would know what I knew. So, well, all right. Oh, I couldn't wait till I got home to tell Mom about it, Miss Quattlebaum, yes, the second fine lady in my life. Oh my. I guess I told you enough, but there was others. Like later on, I got saved the 23rd of July, and there was a woman that wasn't no good. She wasn't no good. I mean, she wasn't no good. She sat here by me on the front seat. I moved to over on the other side into the front seat. She sat right there. And so then her two children sat by her, and then her husband sat with them. And so she jumped up to testify. It was a holiness meeting. She went to testifying, and she went to dancing. And she had on high heel spikes, 5 inches high. And there wasn't nobody in that church wore no such heels as that. They was all just calm. She danced up to the altar, and when she got to the altar, she went to dancing back. I didn't know what in the world she was going to do. And she danced right back and sat down in my lap and throwed her hands back over my head like this. Couldn't take that. She wasn't my kind of woman. No. And besides, my kind of woman wouldn't sit in a stranger's lap. No. Now, I was just 10 years old, and I knew that. So I tore her hands loose, and I gave her a shove, and she stood up, but she lost her balance and sat down again. Same thing. Oh my. Now Lois had got saved too, my first wife, and she had moved over on a side seat, 2 seats over there, and she is on the back seat, and there was the whole seat was full of girls her age, right. I went to school with all of them. I knew all of them, and they knew me. I'm telling you what, they giggled and laughed and giggled and laughed. And they thought they was seeing the best movie they ever seen in their life. And Laura sat there. I could tell she didn't like it. So I pulled her off again. And when I got her off again, I gave her a hard shove, and then I grabbed her by the hips and then gave her another hard shove. And she staggered all the way up to that altar and ended up down on her knees up there. And I guess it woke her sense up. She stood up and looked around where she's going. But she took time and sat down by me. She didn't sit down in my lap no more. Right. She found out I meant no. Well, you know what? Church is about ready to be dismissed. And when the church would dismiss Lois, my future wife, she's 12 years old and I'm 13. She walked straight over there. She said, "Havis, would it hit you if I come and sit by you?" Oh, I said, "Would you?" Sure would. She said, I'll be over tomorrow night. And sure enough, she come. I moved off the front seat. I didn't want to sit by her. But this woman, I don't know that she stunk, but I thought she did. So I sat down on the second seat back and moved over one seat. And Lois come and sit down there. Bless my heart. I know I'm sitting by a good woman. So she's on this side of me, and I'm on this side of her. So I brought my hand up the side of my face like that, and I put my hand right here, slid it out under there. She put hers up like this, put her hand up there, and we held hands. We held hands 2 years. Every school day, holding hands. Okay. So by this time, I'm really thinking lots of Lois. I told my mother the first night I saw her, she was asleep on the bench behind me, and her dad, I didn't even know him. He come and took her by the wrist here and picked her up and said, Lois, get up, it's time to go home. And she got up rubbing one eye, and she looked at me with the other eye. And going home that night, I said, Mom, did you see that girl laying on the seat there asleep? Yeah, she said. Yeah, I saw her. But I said, when she got up, she was rubbing one eye, and she opened the other and looked at me. And I said, Mama, I want to tell you something. Of all the beauty I ever saw in a woman or girl, she's never. Okay, so the time come, and I don't know why God chose it to be that way, but we rode with a man named Vince. He had an old T-model Ford truck that just had a flat bed and had a sideboard up about two feet high, and this woman was supposed to be sick, the same one that sat out in my lap, and so they just asked us to all come down there and pray for her. Okay, so we started down there, and back then that road it wasn't even level and gravel. It was just but there were places, there were rocks stuck up out of the ground. You had to go over them rocks, and the bed of the wagon leaned. So he drove that over a pile or two of them rocks, and so it just almost slowed Lois down. So I mean, she really worked. I put my arm around her. Mm-hmm. Her daddy was up in the front of the truck, standing up there, and see, I can't see in the dark. Did you know I'm moon-eyed, they called it. Can't see in the dark. I couldn't see him up there. Well, just as soon as I put my arm around his daughter, he come walking back through all of them. He got there to me, and he took my arm down from around Lois. And he said, you can't do that. Don't you ever try that again. Well, I didn't say anything. And he walked back up the front. So I didn't put my arm back around her. He goes home, and the next morning at the breakfast table, and Lois had, I can't remember, she had 8 or 9 brothers and sisters. And one was married, but she come back home to visit. So there's all there around a long table like this, and there's all around this long table. And so Brother Carter, that's her dad, stood up and says, I want to tell y'all what happened last night in the truck. Says, Havis put his arm around Lois and says, I saw it, and I went back there and I took his arm down, and I says, you can't do that. And I said, don't you ever try nothing like that again. And all of these children, but Lois, agreed with him. He said, y'all all know Lois is too young to go with the boys. But they all agreed, everybody but Lois and her mother. They hadn't said anything. As soon as they all got through laughing and giggling and all of that, her mother stood up. Fine woman number 3. She stood up. I didn't know what she's going to do. She stood up and she says, I'll agree with all of y'all. Lois is too young to go with the boys. That's right. She's only 12. I said she can go with Havis. Now she wasn't mean to nobody, but what she said went into things. So Lois was back by me the very next night. We were sitting there holding hands. We sat there 2 more years. So anyway, I'll tell you what. I thought she was a good woman, see, but I only thought it. I hadn't seen her try that no kind of way. Till after 2 years, me and Lois got married. She had to. We wasn't either one old enough to get married. Her mother said she'd go and sign for her. They got over there and they wouldn't let her. She said she's too young. So we went back home. And so when her mother got out of the car, she fell and broke her knee. Yeah. And she said, oh, what'll I do? I've never let no man even touch me but my husband. Lois told her, said, now Havis is just 16 years old, but said he's a strong man. He'll carry you in the house if you let him. Do you think I'd let him carry me? But too modest to let it, to let another man touch it. Well, her husband and 3 brothers had gone to California to work. We agreed to stay there and take care of her mother for all of the day we're home. Okay. So we took her to the hospital and they put pins in here so it'd stay put, and then they put a cast on her, and then they put her in a chair, a wheelchair, and they told her said don't let her put any weight on this foot for. I believe they said 2 months. So we got home and she went crying. She said, Lois, what am I going to do? Says, I can't walk in the house, and this wheelchair won't go through the door. She said, Havis only 16 years old, but he can carry you, and he will carry you in. You think I'll let him carry me? She just kept crying. After a while, she said, she looked up at me and tried to dry her tears up. She said, I don't see no other way, Havis. Do you? I said, no. Okay. So I picked her up and I had to go through a door like this, and then that next door I had to turn and go through, and that door had to open here for me to get in there, and then I had to turn again there. I held her through 3 turns of the door and worked her feet around to there. And finally then, when I got through that 3rd door, well, it was straight up to their bedroom. So I carried her up there and laid her in the bed. Oh, she said, thank you. But I'll tell you what, she told us, said, don't you tell nobody. So she waited till they got home, her husband and her 3 boys. And she said, I've got something to tell y'all. All right, let's hear it. She told about me carrying her in there and putting her in the bed. And says, I want you to know that he never touched me out of the way in any way. He brought me in here and laid me down without touching me anywhere that he didn't have to. And that's good woman number 3. I'll tell you what, from then on, the rest of our married life, I could count on her. I guess I told you enough. I told you about 3 good women.
Maybe one enough for one take.
Okay.
All right, let's let Joey see if he'll do it. See how it works. I sure hope it all went.